I don't think this video would be appropriate if I wasn't wearing a cardigan. Oh my god, I got so passionate about Alec, I just had a coughing fit. Hello everyone, welcome back, or welcome to my channel. My name is Lauren and I make videos a couple of times a week about books and fandom things. So I disappeared again for a little bit because I was in the hospital, which was great. One thing that I have been doing this whole time and have literally not stopped doing, like regardless of being in the hospital, is listening to Folklore on repeat. Taylor Swift dropped a surprise album, was like, midnight, Folklore. I woke up at 5 AM because it was 5 AM UK time in which the album dropped, and listened to it at 5 in the morning because I am a Swiftie before I am anything else. I love Taylor Swift. I have adored Taylor Swift for like most of my life, and because she's only 5 years older than me, I grew up with her, so starting from like singing about being 15 to now lyrics like I'll give you a child, it's like interesting because I've seen those changes in myself as well, because I think, and I don't want to say this too soon because it might change, but I think Folklore might be my favourite Taylor album. But we're not going to go there right now, we're going to do it. And it was quite early on and I thought I'd Google Taylor Swift Folklore book tag and it didn't exist. And then I was in the hospital. I YouTube searched it afterwards because I would never make a tag without searching to see if that tag already exists, because obviously I don't want to do it if someone else has already done it. And there were quite a few that existed, but loads of different ones said original, so I didn't actually know who the original one was, so I didn't want to do a tag that's already been made because I didn't know who was the original. I didn't want to credit the wrong person. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So this isn't necessarily a tag, but this is just Folklore as books. I have a list of what's what and we're going to go through it. So the first song on the album is The One, and the book that I've chosen is a book that I thought I would love that I didn't end up loving, and that is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. If you guys saw my books I'm gonna give a second chance video, I actually did try to give this book a second chance. I read about 10 chapters of this book and then didn't finish it, and I think I'm just gonna have to accept that this book, it just wasn't for me. Taylor Jenkins Reid is definitely for me. Evelyn Hugo, one of my top 3 favourite books in the whole entire world, and is actually in this list. But Daisy Jones just didn't, it's just not for me. This is about a band called Daisy Jones and the Six, who were the highest they were very popular, going up the ladder, everyone loved them until they split up in 1979, and no one has known why that happened until now. And I'm not saying this book is bad, because I think so many people would love it, so many people do love it, so many of my friends adore this book, but I just think it's not for me. But it's, you know, I think it is for lots of people, so it's not that it's a bad book, it's just not a book for me. Thought this was going to be the one, like Evelyn Hugo was the one, and it wasn't the one. Then we have Cardigan. Now I really struggled to kind of think of something that could fit, but obviously the whole theme of the album is folklore and telling stories from the past and passing them down, and in this she talks about Peter losing Wendy, which obviously is a reference to Peter Pan and other stories, and this was the single that was released, so it's sort of the song in which she's using to show folklore off. So I went with my favourite retelling and a story that I thought was a good retelling of something from the past, and for this one I went with Forks by Nadine Brandes. Now I really love retellings. Retellings are some of my favourite things, and I went through a phase where I read a lot of fairy tale retellings and a lot of retellings of stories that I already knew, but the last year or so I've been really into historical retellings and retellings of events that happened in history, but fictionalizing them and adding different elements. And this, obviously, as you can tell by the title, is a retelling of what happened with Guy Fawkes. And for those that don't know, because it's a very English thing, so I don't want to assume everyone knows, Guy Fawkes was someone that many a year ago, in the late 1500s and early 1600s, he died in 1606. Basically, he wanted to blow up the Houses of Parliament where the House of Lords was, and kill the king so that they could restore a Catholic monarch to the throne, and his plan didn't work, and just before it was about to happen they were caught, and Guy Fawkes was actually hung, drawn and quartered, which was a thing that used to happen in England. And this adds a magical element to it, so this is actually really interesting. So instead of it being a religion debate, it is a magic debate and different levels of magic. And then there's also a plague going round which is turning people to stone, and people are seen and treated awfully if part of them is seen to be turned into stone, and that they have this disease, they have this plague. So it's a really interesting play because like it goes into different classes, because obviously the magic, and then how people would have been treated depending on what their religion was, and having a ruler, which is one thing, versus what other people believe, and that how you shouldn't question what the person that's ruling you believes, whereas it's actually completely fine to have a different viewpoint to someone else. And but obviously back then it was treason and you were killed because of it. But it's a really interesting play. I was really excited to read this book, but also a little bit nervous because I really wanted it to be done well. But Nadine Brandes really did her research, and I absolutely loved this. I thought it was such a creative way to tell this story, to change this story, to get people interested and wanting to do their own research, but also adding a magical element, and I really loved it and thought it was really good. Then we have Last Great American Dynasty. So I decided to go for my favourite finale of a series, the finale of a series which was the end, and the end to what I loved so much, and I decided to go with Blood of Olympus by Rick Riordan. This is the final book in the Heroes of Olympus series, which is the big proper sequel series to the Percy Jackson series, because obviously there is Magnus Chase, Trials of Apollo and Kane Chronicles, but those aren't necessarily sequels. But in Magnus Chase they're in it more, but in Trials of Apollo and also Kane Chronicles, like it's like mentions and small cameos, you know. So this was sort of when that story ended, and this really was the last great story of these guys, and the story that they had, and fighting to literally save the world from absolute chaos. And I just remember reading this, and because it took me so long to get through House of Hades, because it was really emotional and really hard to get through because of everything that Percy and Annabeth were going through. It was quite a lot. So this one I remember reading and getting through really quickly because it was the end, and I was so hooked and so, oh my god. So yeah, I think this is definitely my favourite finale of a series that I've read. And then we have Exile, which there is literally a lyric. I think I've seen this film before and I didn't like the ending, and I've done a book that, so I've gone with a book I literally exiled, a book I hated the ending of and will never touch again, and I'm not even going to tell you what it's about or give it much screen time. That's The Casual Vacancy by J.K. Rowling. I don't think I've addressed on here that J.K. Rowling's tweets, I obviously don't agree with them and will not be supporting her financially anymore. This book, I had to mention it because it is without a doubt the worst book I've ever read in my life. She was trying to make a point about how negative life can be, but she was doing it to make a point because of Harry Potter. Like, it was her first book after Harry Potter, and I think she was trying to get so far away from being a children's author. So she made this book really bleak, really horrible. The ending didn't need to happen. There were so many things in it which just didn't need to happen in order for her to still get her point across, and it was just too much, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. It is without a doubt the worst book I've ever read. I hated The Casual Vacancy. Then we have My Tears Ricochet, and I've gone with my favourite book betrayal, or a book betrayal that was like, oh my god, and I've gone with Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare, which is the first book in the Last Hour series. This came out this year. Still haven't done a full review of it. I did a reading vlog of it, but I still haven't done a full review of it because this book is my favourite Cassandra Clare book to date, and I love Cordelia so much, and I love James and Will and just everyone, just all of them. I love all of them. With everything that happened with Grace Blackthorne and Tatiana and the bracelet, I could see something was coming with that bracelet, but genuinely it was such a clever form of manipulation, and as much as I hate it because I want James and Cordelia to be together and I want them to be happy, and James deserves all the happiness in the world and not what he is currently getting, and so does Cordelia. I just think it was a really clever way of manipulation, and obviously Tatiana's in on it, Grace is in on it, and I think that Tatiana has a lot more power than we think she has, and it was sort of a clever but also mysterious way of manipulation and a subtle way of manipulation, which actually sometimes I think in stories can be the most devastating, because it comes on so slowly that you don't realize it's happening until it's happened, which I think can really sort of have its knock-on effects, and I think from real life as well, from things I've experienced, can also be the same thing. So I just think this was a really good way. I mean, the way that Cassie writes is amazing anyway, and she always is able to tell these stories very well, but this is definitely one that I think, like, the betrayal situation and everything in it is so unexplained and so sudden, like it, you know, so slow to build. I just think that it's done really well. So then we have Mirrorball, which is Taylor's description of herself being a mirror ball, and she can change everything around her to fit in. I decided to go for my favourite book, which has a kind of magic or like power system, and being able to do that and being able to put yourself into different situations to fit different situations. And I think that a good book to represent that is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. Now this book is amazing. It focuses on Rin, who wants to get into this really prestige school, and she studies so hard in order to get into it, and she surprises absolutely everyone, and actually does, even herself. Like, she even surprises herself. And then when she is in there, it shows that because she has darker skin, because she comes from a poorer province, she is not treated the same way, and she really has to put in more effort in order to be included and to be considered to carrying on for a second semester. She then finds out that she has a power, which is actually a power in which a lot of people just think is a myth, and not something which people have anymore, which is the art of shamanism. And it is her using that, and the way that she uses that, and the way that it changes who she is. And I just think it's a really incredible story. I've read the first one. I need to get onto the Dragon Republic before The Burning God, which is the third and final book in the series, comes out later this year. But this is just a really good example. Like, Rin is able to manipulate herself in order to fit what she wants to do. This book is absolutely phenomenal. I actually have a video which is why you should read The Poppy War, which I'll link down below. It's absolutely amazing. It is incredible adult fantasy, and I'm so excited to read the rest of the series because it genuinely is so incredible. Then we have 7, and I'm going with my favourite middle grade / children's book, and with this one I'm going with The Thing About Jellyfish by Ali Benjamin. This book focuses on Susie, who is 11, I believe, if I remember correctly, and her best friend has just died from drowning. And obviously, being that young, even now I think being an adult, that's really hard to comprehend, but especially being that young. And I was actually the same age as Susie when I experienced my first death, which was also a shock, and was very sudden. And I've wanted to make a video about books about grief for a really long time, and I don't know if people would be interested in that, but there's a lot that really helped me even now as an adult. Like, I read this when I was like 20, and it was still really helpful, and still made me cry, and I really resonated with lots of things. So if you would like to see that video, I know it sounds a little bleak, but I do think it is also could be important. Susie determines that, well, her friend could swim, so she must have been stung by jellyfish, because things like that just don't happen unless there's a reason. Death just doesn't happen unless there's a reason for it. So she becomes absolutely focused on finding as much as she can about jellyfish, because she's determined to prove that there was a reason that she drowned. But it's this acceptance of that sometimes these things do happen, and there is nothing we can do about it, and there is no control that we can have over it. And I just think that that's a really important message, and a really important thing to accept, because I think that reaching that stage is such a crucial part of grief and dealing with grief. And this book is just absolutely phenomenal. I cannot recommend it enough. Then we have August, and I've gone with my favourite summer romance, and that is Our Own Private Universe by Robin Talley. This book I think is really important. It focuses on a Kai who knows she's bisexual, but she's never been able to put that into practice. She's never been in a relationship or been with anyone, and she goes away for the summer to a camp, and there she meets Krista, who is a little bit older, has a little bit more experience, and it is everything from there and them developing a relationship. It also focuses on coming out and friends and family and accepting yourself. The thing I really loved about this story is that there is sex in this book, and not only is there sex between two girls, which I think is really good, because that's just, you just never see those things unless it's just like really smutty and not part of like a relationship, but it actually is like protection is used, and how to carry out safe sex is discussed when it's between two girls, which I think is never discussed, and they're teenagers as well, and you never see teenagers having safe sex in books, but it's like actually a really important thing to talk about. You know, if a young girl reads this book and she's also into girls, that's something that needs to be spoken about, and you don't even get barely any good safe sex for heterosexual couples in school, let alone gay sex like discussions in schools. So whilst people say with this fiction, it actually can like teach people that that's a thing. You know, you read it and you think, oh, there's actually these things, maybe I'll then go and do more research. And I just think it's really important, while also being a really cute story about lots of good things. I read this years ago now, but it is really, really good, and I think that it has stuck with me since as a book that I really loved. And I think Robin Talley does a really good thing with her books, and I just think this book's really important for young gay, bi, pan, and so on women and people reading this, in which this form of safe sex might apply to them, and they might need to know about it, because I think probably like 1 or 2 books since in which it is mentioned. And you know me, 95% of what I read is gay. Then we have This Is Me Trying, and I've gone for a book that I'm giving a second chance, and I'm not going to go too much into this as well because I have spoken about this a lot recently. I did a whole video with books I'm giving a second chance, like I said, it'll be in the description, and that's Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, which focuses on Alex, and she believed that she was pretty much at the end of her life, like everything was going awful, she was in the hospital, like she'd been dealing with so much crap, and then she gets given a second chance to attend Yale and turn her life around. But because she has a power which people just only dream they can have, and a clause of being given this second chance and a free ride to Yale, is that she has to keep an eye on one of the secret societies at Yale, because they're a little bit more powerful and doing some things in which they are not supposed to be. And the first time I read this, I just didn't gel with it as much as I thought I would. Now, Leigh Bardugo is one of my top 3 favourite authors, so it didn't really make sense. And then I went to a book talk and it made me even more buzzed to try it again, and now is the time in which I'm finally going to start it. I'm going to read it this week, so I'm really, really excited to delve back into it, but I'm going to give it another chance because I want to love it so much, because it's everything I should love. And I don't know why I didn't gel with it the first time, but I'm gonna give it another chance and I can't wait. Then we're gonna go for Illicit Affairs, and this is my guilty pleasure read. Now, I don't tend to call books that I read a guilty pleasure, because I just think if you enjoy something, you enjoy it. But I do find myself, when I feel really, really, really down, going back to the My Secret Unicorn series, which my mum read me when I was about 5. I have read so many times since. I actually kind of want to do a vlog where I reread them, because I haven't reread them in a while. These are like children's books. This isn't even middle grade, this is kids books, and I loved them because the main girl is called Lauren and she has a horse which turns into a unicorn, and what do you not like about that? And I still have the whole series. I can never get rid of them. I will read these to my niece, I will read them to my own children, like I just forever and ever. So My Secret Unicorn. Then we have Invisible String, and I've gone with a book that I'm really connected to, and I don't even necessarily mean this in a way of connected to as in I resonate with it. I do mean that as well, but also this book I have links to, like it just seems like it needed to be in my life, which is just really interesting. So for example, the reason why I actually ended up discovering this book was because the 2 main characters share a name with 2 philosophers in which I was actually studying at the time. I actually Google searched for these two and then book, and this came up, and then Lin-Manuel Miranda reads the audiobook to this book, which I'm very connected to Lin-Manuel. Literally a Lin, this is a Lin shelf. This is a Lin shelf. Lots of little things in my life I've always had a connection to something that's connected to this book, and then they all came together to give me this book, and that is of course Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Hilary Sands. Now, I love this book. It's my most favourite book in the whole entire world. If you guys are not new here, you will know this. I talk about this book all the bloody time. It focuses on Ari and Dante, two 15-year-old boys who meet one summer. They live in El Paso in Texas, and Dante can swim, Ari can't. Dante offers to teach him, and it is everything from there. It is an amazing story about growing up and accepting yourself and learning about yourself and exploring yourself and discovering yourself, and family and friendship and relationships, and then LGBTQ+ issues and so many wonderful things. And this book, genuinely, I'd never seen my thoughts so expressed, and he deals a lot with accepting himself in very similar ways into which I also struggled with that, and he thought things that I literally had thought and that had been in my head for the longest time. And I was 19 when I read this book. I just turned 19. So I was, you know, like, I was an adult but barely, and I was still dealing with loads of stuff, and I still hadn't come to terms with loads of things about myself. So forever, this book is literally, I have such a connection to this book, and it is my favourite. And we have Mad Woman, and this is my favourite fictional woman. Now, I have a lot of favourite fictional women, so I'm just going to talk about just some of my favourite, like, so many from the Mortal Instruments: Tessa, Anna Lightwood, Cordelia Carstairs, Emma Carstairs, Lucy Herringdale, Isabel Lightwood. Love them all. Annabeth Chase, love of my life. Hazel, also from the Heroes of Olympus series, absolutely love her. Sam from the Magnus Chase series, adore her. Katniss Everdeen, my actual legend. Joanna, also from the Hunger Games, complete legend, and I love her so much. Pepper Potts, genuinely also the love of my life. The love of my life is Pepper Potts. Natasha Romanoff, also the love of my life. Genuinely, like, Carol Danvers. Okay, we're going out of books now. We're going out of books, but I guess they're all comic books. But yeah, loads of fictional. We love women. We love women on this channel. So then we've got Epiphany, and I've put down a character that I'll always defend, Alec Lightwood. Now, Alec gets a lot of stick, understandably, because Alec makes a lot of shitty decisions. But I think that it's really important to also then acknowledge Alec's growth, which a lot of people don't do. Like, I am all here for talking about people's mistakes, because that is how people grow. If people then refuse to also acknowledge that and also not grow, they're just a bit of a shitty person, you know? Whereas Alec, although he is fictional, Alec grew and learnt from every single mistake that he made, and ultimately, by the time we get to Ghosts from the Shadow Market, he has grown into an amazing man, a husband, a father, a leader, a brother. Like, he is so sure of himself and who he is, and so accepting of himself, and so willing to help other people that he knows are going through the same thing that he went through, or if he knows he can help them in any way because he doesn't want them to suffer the way that he did, he is willing to do. And I just think that that is so important. A lot of people read the first 6 books in the Mortal Instruments / Shadowhunter whole series. Like, a lot of people have just read the Mortal Instruments and are very quick to criticize Alec for the decisions that he makes, and I understand that, because he genuinely makes some really shitty decisions and does some shitty things. But the characters in which those things, like, are not quick to accept an apology and are not quick to be like, it's fine, they call him out, they tell him off, they tell him why it's wrong, but they're also really good at understanding that he's dealing with years of repressed hatred of himself, of internalized homophobia, from his family, of scared homophobia from his friends and other people that he knows, of being exiled from the only thing he's ever known. Because internalized homophobia, it fucks you up. It really is in your head for the longest time, and even when you're okay with it, it still lingers. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. I love Alec Lightwood. He grows into an amazing, amazing character. He was the first gay character I ever read in a book, and I'm so grateful for him for what he did for so many people, myself included. And to see his struggles and to see his journey has been amazing, because he has grown so much, and I will forever be grateful for Alexander Gideon Lightwood Bain. Then we have Betty, and I've gone for my favourite high school sapphic book, because that song was the biggest win for the sapphics this year. I don't care what anyone says, that song is gay. I've gone for Tell Me How You Really Feel by Amina May Safi, and this focuses on Rachel and Sana. Sana actually asked out Rachel a few years ago, and it was the first time she had asked out a girl, but Rachel thought she was joking and said no, and they've kind of been not too friendly with each other ever since. And then something happens which means that Sana has to help Rachel with her final film project, and there's everything from there. This book is amazing. It has got fab explorations of race and family and sexuality, and it's just amazing. It's just a really done well enemies to lovers. Like, it's not enemies, it's like we kind of don't really get on because of a misunderstanding, but now we actually do and we're feeling these things, and it's just done very well, and I absolutely love it. Then we have Peace, and I've linked this with my favourite relationship, and I have gone for Percy and Annabeth, because this song, it's so fitting. Like, the rain is always going to come if you stand in with me. Like, their whole relationship is never going to be peaceful. Like, they can move on from things, but there's always going to be the gods riding over them, and everything they do, like, it's considering the gods in it, and like, it's such a Percy Beth song, and I love it. And when I wrote down Peace, then I put favourite fictional relationship, I was like, I mean, I have so many favourite relationships, but this song just screams Percy Beth, and I'm very much in a Percy and Annabeth mood at the minute, because I've just got onto the final book in the Magnus J series, and the first chapter literally starts with Percy, and the second book ends with Percy and Annabeth just being classic seaweed brain and wise girl, and I just love them very much. Then Hoax, and this song is definitely about a very toxic relationship, and I didn't really want to go into a book in which it was my like favourite toxic relationship, because I don't have a favourite toxic relationship, because why would I? So I went for my favourite sad relationship, and a relationship that happens and that I loved when it happened, but ultimately there are sadder tones underneath, and the book is sad, and it does make me cry, and it doesn't end on a particularly happy note. And I've gone for The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book, no one talks about the fact that it has bisexual representation, and Evelyn spends the majority of this book in a relationship and in love with a woman, but in order to get to there, like, there are so many ups and downs and falls, and their relationship is not perfect. Their relationship does not exist for a big chunk of time because of things that have gone on, and struggles in which coming out and accepting yourself and being in the public eye in that situation. And this book's not a happy book. Like, it's not a book in which you read and finish feeling so happy because it's just the happiest book ever. It's a book that you read, finish, realise it's absolutely amazing, but then also leave with this bittersweet, melancholic feeling, because it definitely also is heart-wrenching. So I had to go with this one. And then finally, as a bonus one, we've got The Lakes, which is a book that you're really looking forward to, because The Lakes is only on the physical edition, which you had to order from Taylor's website, which I've done, and I can't wait until it arrives because I really want to hear this song. So I've gone for a book that I'm really looking forward to, and to be honest, loads of books I'm really looking forward to, but recently I thought about the final book in a series that I've been waiting for a really long time and realised I hadn't heard anything about it, so I googled, and it's not coming out until 2021, which I was very sad about, and that's The Last Confessions of Mara Dyer and Noah Shaw. I started the Mara Dyer series in 2014 when I was still at uni. It has been a very long time since I started the Mara Dyer series. I think there was like only 2 books out when I started it. Now there's 5. This is the final book. The Mara Dyer series is like done, and then there's the Shaw Confessions, but it is a continuation. It's just in Noah's perspective, and I don't talk about it a lot. Like I did back when they were coming out, but obviously there hasn't been a book in a little while. But I just adore this series, and I think it is a nostalgic thing that they've been part of my life for so long, and I've got to see this through to the end, because I am aware that there are like some issues with them, but like genuinely will always read a Noah Shaw / Mara Dyer book that comes out, and I just need to know how it ends. And I'm excited for the final one because I'm going to do a big reread and start from the beginning, because I haven't read the first book literally in 6 years, so I'm going to start from the beginning and read all the way through, and I'm really excited and genuinely really buzzed for this book. So yes, that was Folklore as book. I'm not going to call this a tag, I'm not going to tag anyone, but if anyone wants to maybe do the similar thing, I'd love to see your interpretations of Folklore as books. Just tag me on Twitter, which is @RunOnTheRoad, or on Instagram, which is also @RunOnTheRoad. Or leave it in the comments down here. Remember when video responses were a thing and it made things like a lot easier. Like I said, if you guys are new here, then I make videos a couple of times a week about books and fandom things. So if you want to stick around and join us, feel free to hit that subscribe button and hit the little notification bell. And as usual, all the links to my other social medias and also the links to my podcast are in the description down below. So thank you guys for watching. I hope we're doing really well, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!